As you may know, the cinematic universe weaves storylines and heroes and villains across 23 feature films to date. And with Disney Plus, we're able to extend this way of storytelling to a new format, creating series that are connected to our theatrical releases, making the MCU more immersive than ever. WandaVision will be the very first Marvel Studios series. This film
Disney
hits
Plus.
theaters March 25th, 2022. Moments of Avengers Endgame. And to another hero we last saw in Avengers Endgame's first animated series, Shang-Chi to life. Next year is Miss Marvel, launching on Disney Plus
It's a
late
series
next
about a
year.
woman trying to navigate the
in our
world and be
series,
taken
Hawkeye
seriously
teams
as
up
a
with
working
another
professional
well-known
complex
archer from Marvel
vigilante
Comics
who suffers from
Kate Bishop.
disassociative
It's what
attachment.
happens
Guardians
when his
family.
tech falls into the wrong
Fantastic
hands. Loki.
So, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's massive, right? In the last 10 years, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has grown exponentially from one film every year and a bit, to 2 films, to 3 films, to the nightmare that is 2021, in which we have had 9 Marvel Studios productions shoved into the span of 12 months. This is due to the fact that Marvel have been not only producing movies, but also TV shows. Now, yes, Marvel have been producing TV shows alongside the MCU for close to 8 years, with the release of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and that whole subcategory. There was the Marvel Netflix shows, and it's just a lot of characters to be bundled around. But now, Disney Plus has allowed Marvel to have canon MCU characters intertwine seamlessly. And that's where my main issue comes in. In a year which has been so packed full of Marvel content, how do Marvel decide where their characters go? Who gets a movie and who gets a show? Let's take a deeper look. In the span of a single year, we were treated to 4 movies, 2 with returning characters and 2 entirely new franchises, being Eternals and Shang-Chi, alongside 5 TV shows that were entirely focused on existing characters. My biggest question is around how these shows and movies were decided. Who decided Black Widow should be a film, but Hawkeye should be a show? So I did a bit of digging on why each of these properties were made, aside from keeping the flow of content on Disney Plus going. So what does it all really mean? Well, Marvel regard each of their properties as the same level of content, meaning that they value a show's success and quality just as much as their movies, which means that by having content in both cinemas and on Disney Plus, they are managing to expand the MCU twice or even 3 times as much, without oversaturating the market by placing all of its Disney Plus content behind a paywall, which in turn will mean a lot less people will see it. The people who are seeing the Disney Plus content don't need to go far to get it. The content is available weekly from their household, which presents a much quicker set of interactions than having to drive to a cinema. It's a lot more digestible, and presents an easier user experience, which makes the movies still feel like grander events despite the advantages that the shows have. For example, being a similar budget to the films and having a longer runtime and snappier pacing. These shows are absolutely oriented for a younger generation, with a much shorter attention span, the type of audience that will scroll past a TikTok video if it does not entertain them for more than half a second.
You're so old.
And so the shows retain a fast pace and little nuggets with ties to MCU properties to consistently grab at your attention. It's what makes the shows so easy and fun to binge, because they are given in such digestible chunks, at such a high quality of production. The biggest point of comparison would be the Netflix approach, with a full season of content being dropped in one go to be consumed when the audience wishes, which allows for double the runtime at a consistent 10 to 13 hours of television, and a much slower pacing and story that can get audiences invested at a much more slow and organic rate. Both of these methods have advantages and disadvantages. You either make them wish for more, with slow drip-fed quantities, or you release it all at once and let the audience digest the show because they actively want to come back to it. Both work, and the weekly approach has been a tried and tested success for decades, at getting people talking week to week without boring them with too much content, whereas the Marvel Netflix shows could either engage you from the start, or you could get bored and look online to see if it looks better, then promptly give up when you find out it's Iron Fist. The Netflix shows were simply a space for a different studio to use the MCU characters, in name only, under the leadership of a completely different head, who is somehow still working today. The success of something like Daredevil or Jessica Jones was purely down to the Netflix format, and not the Disney one, as they only had a hold of the brand for a few years and were still experimenting with Phase 2 of the film saga.
This is a wonderful time to plug my most successful video looking at Daredevil and why it succeeded. If your penis is large, you will click the card at the top, but not yet. I need more watch time, lol, bye.
The too long didn't read is that Daredevil and the likes of the other Netflix shows added a maturity and sense of threat that the family-friendly MCU ones never could, and going forward I'll be incredibly curious to see how the same characters are portrayed now fully integrated into the MCU via this soft reboot. The reason I bring up the Netflix shows is because they are an excellent point of comparison with how Marvel is currently handling their shows, as the MCU continues to introduce more and more characters to balance screen time for. It was inevitable at some point that certain offshoots would need to take place, or a character like Hawkeye could have been completely forgotten about, or in the case of Falcon and Winter Soldier, certain characters needed to pivot before joining the big screen again. But this arc was too important to be shoved into another movie, like say Age of Ultron or Civil War attempted to do. This means the directors on both the movies and shows have less studio notes on things to include, therefore leading to a more cohesive final product like Shang-Chi or Eternals have produced, by having little in terms of overall MCU setup, but absolutely having had the freedom to live in their own space. When TV shows can have the same budget and quality of films, the question becomes a creative one. Does the story justify the length? Some stories can be told in 5 minutes, and others in over 100 hours. It all depends on what is being told, and if you look at Shang-Chi for example, could have worked as a TV show? Probably. I can see it working, and that's exactly how the Marvel structure of their films and TV shows stay similar. And that's because Marvel structure their TVs and films incredibly similar. It's been a fact for a while that Marvel directors have a heavy hand of guidance from Kevin Feige and his team, with entire second units being rolled out to complete action sequences ahead of time. So the movies already have a well-oiled machine mentality to pump them out on time, and adapting the second unit with a TV showrunner could be why their Disney Plus properties have had such a similar feel to the movies. Let's also not forget that this is Disney, the masters of keeping their stories simple, which makes the breakdown of their pacing not too dissimilar to their movies. Kevin Feige has even gone so far to say that everything Marvel creates is using the same process, and they are all Marvel productions no matter the format. However, even within the TV realm, not all of the Disney Plus shows even work in the same format, with both miniseries like Falcon and Winter Soldier existing alongside shows with traditional season-long arcs like Loki, which increases the variety and allows characters to return to the movies once having their shows, like Anthony Mackie, without feeling like they've been downgraded to TV, whilst an actor like Tom Hiddleston, who was fairly finished in the MCU, has been given a chance to settle down with the character for multiple years now, and produce a completely separate story in the same universe, that simply wouldn't have been possible had Marvel stuck to their narrow set of movies. In the first year of the Disney Plus shows, we have had solely existing MCU characters as the leads. However, as we go into 2022, we're going to be getting full MCU hero introductions through the shows, such as Moon Knight and Miss Marvel, that will become pivotal to the overall story going forward, which increases the importance of having that Disney Plus subscription. It increases the value of Disney Plus as a service by offering exclusive parts of the story that are still of major importance. In video game terms, it's like locking off parts of the story mode into paid DLC, which make it so you can't understand the story without paying an additional fee, one that the fanbase will be happy to pay, since the quality of the shows is on the same level of the movies in both budget and scale for the same price. Once people knew that Spider-Man was in Civil War, that undoubtedly raised ticket sales, but you never would have watched it for characters like Wanda or Vision. However, spending a bit of time away from the ensemble allows characters like this to breathe and grow more than they could with the limited screen time of a movie. And now, the major selling point of a Doctor Strange movie is Wanda's inclusion, which shows the power that these shows have over the way the movies sell. It's genuinely an almost unstoppable business method, and undoubtedly very impressive to throw at us in just under a year and still receive such a positive outcome. Creatively, we also need to consider the type of stories being told. For example, Black Widow would not have worked as a miniseries, because we are following one through line of events from a character that doesn't require too much additional explanation to understand the story. Black Widow had a much richer and established backstory throughout her many appearances in the MCU, and so picking an isolated gap in the timeline to focus on served the movie better and didn't overcrowd it. Consult my video essay on Black Widow for my thoughts on how that was handled. All the current Disney Plus shows are balancing two leads, and so need quite literally double the runtime to establish them. I would argue that had Hawkeye been a show about just Clint, and had no mention of Kate Bishop, then the runtime could have well fit into a movie. However, these are characters that themselves haven't had much time to sit with audiences.
Yeah, peace. I love peace. I'd be out of a job with peace.
The outlier from the Disney Plus shows lies in Marvel's What If series, which is a fun, digestible Elseworlds set of anthology stories.
Do we know each other?
But the crux of the show is the high calibre of animation, as the MCU has never done this before, which I believe to be a response to the success of Sony's Spider-Verse film, and has led to Marvel experimenting with animation in the safest way possible by retelling their existing stories with fun twists that give fans a sense of nostalgia and something new at the same time, without overstaying its welcome. The episodes are purposefully a tiny glimpse into what-if scenarios, and rarely dip their toes into an extended runtime. However, with the confirmation of a Season 2, and a spin-off in the form of Marvel Zombies alongside a Groot animated TV show, I think it's apparent that Marvel are aggressively expanding the animation department, to the point where new MCU heroes may not even debut in live action until several appearances down the line. But with the promise of being live action at some point, as is rumoured with the poster child of What If, Captain Carter, who will be appearing in live action very soon, which is already blending together both live action and animated divisions into one connected universe. Which has certainly never been done before. The choice to make these animated shows will save massively on budget, and getting particular actors on board, as very few of the MCU actors actually need to return to voice their animated counterparts, which makes the series in a cheaper bubble where they can operate, in which will also mean a higher tier of animation, which is where the budget of What If really shined.
You had me worried for a second.
So whether it's live action or animation, the MCU has no signs of stopping, utilising the Disney Plus format to pivot characters or introduce new and interesting storylines to bring back into their movies to work simultaneously as different productions on different levels of scope. It's a pretty genius idea, and one that I'm going to be following for the next few years, as I'm pretty sure if I made this video next year, it would be an entirely different story. So I'll see you then. Let me know in the comments what you think of Marvel's strategy. Do you think that this is too much at once, or do you think that Marvel should branch out into different areas to keep things more varied and give us less of the Marvel formula? If you liked the video, do smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.